Morning Brew with Elle Dawson and Gillian Robertson. Brought to you by Fight Bananas.
Good morning. Good morning. The red light is on, and it is our very first Sunday Morning Brew with the Gillian Savage Robertson as my co-host. How you doing, Jill?
Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm doing great. We had our first night of fights last night after about a month, so I couldn't be better.
Oh, so happy to have fights back. And what a card, too. All the finishes, like...
Oh, yeah, no, it was an impressive card from top to bottom, honestly. And, yeah, it was a great night just to bring it all back.
Yeah, no, 100%. What a way to kick off the year. Huge finish. Fatima Klein in your weight class. I've been a fan of hers for a while. She actually fought a teammate of mine. She's the only person to beat that teammate of mine before she was in the UFC. And she's always kind of been on my radar. Also big Erin Blanchfield fan, as always. You know, you're a grappler too. I feel like you get it. Big Erin Blanchfield fan. So I picked up Fatima Klein when I realized she was training with Erin up there in the New York area. But did she pop onto your radar after last night?
So it was actually maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago, I want to say. I competed on a combat jiu-jitsu card in Cancun. It was Eddie Bravo's card, and I was competing as a flyweight, but Fatima was actually competing as a strawweight on that card, and she ended up winning the strawweight division.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of when she came onto my radar initially, because just watching her compete there, I was like, wow, this girl's legit. She's good. And then I noticed that she was an MMA fighter as well. Saw that she was going on a winning streak all on the regional scene. So even when she made her UFC debut against Jasmine Jasudavicius, I knew she was someone to watch. And even that performance, she took it, I think it was a week's notice, short notice on a weight class up, and she still looked good out there. So I think she showed how good she was in that performance. And then even more last night, I think she really just, she showed that it's her world in there. Like, even on the feet, she looked crisp. Didn't care if she's taken to the ground. It doesn't matter. She's just very well rounded and looked very comfortable in there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. I think she showed her toughness against Jazz. Like you said, Jazz is an incredible fighter, fantastic wrestler. And you could see the massive size difference between the two of them in the fight. And she took her down at least once, maybe twice in that fight as well. So I agree with that, everything you said. I did see a very interesting video from the other side of the octagon after that fight. Her opponent, Victoria Dudakova, got a little froggy with her coach. I obviously understand the frustration. If you guys haven't seen the video circulating, she her coach kind of tried to pat her on the back, and she shoved him off and was like, I don't know what she was saying.
Slapped him.
Impression, kind of smacked him. And I was like, oh. So just I'm not sure if they have a different family dynamic, or if he's just her coach. I honestly don't know too much about their relationship, but either way, it was a little bit shocking to see. You don't usually see that. I don't think I would ever dream of doing that to my coach, no matter how frustrated I am.
So I actually saw that video because Dean was the one who sent it to me.
Ooh.
So my head coach, and he sent it and I quote, "If you ever do this to me, I will burn you alive."
Oh my.
So not looking to do that in the future, but I definitely a abrasive reaction. I will say I don't really understand her game plan going into that fight, so maybe it is some frustration there, because she was first and second round so determined to get the takedown on a well-known grappler like Fatima. It just seems like, I don't know, and even after the first round, she went out there, got the takedown, kind of got out grappled a little bit, ended up on bottom in the end of the first round. It's like, what motivates you to first thing in the second round go out there and shoot again?
Yeah. And I understand, if you're Grant, for example, or you, for example, with the level of grappling that you guys have, your game plan's generally always going to be the same. But I feel like if you are a well-rounded fighter, which I do feel like Dudakova is, I almost feel like she flipped a 180. She got out wrestled in her past fights. And so she's like, okay, I'm only going to wrestle now. I'm like, that doesn't really make a lot of logical sense, you know?
Yeah, no, it just, like I said, it seemed like a weird game plan as a whole for me facing someone like Fatima. It's not something I wouldn't be trying to just like go in there, take her down if I'm getting out grappled on the ground. It's like I'm not gonna try to force that. I'm probably gonna try to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Yeah, it was a very, very strange to see. I, while we're on that subject, I was going to wait a little bit to talk about the main event, but I didn't love Amanda Hebus's game plan either. I feel like your defense for a high level grappler should not be, we stall until the round ends. Like that, like you've got to be able to get up. And she, when she was on top and when she was on the feet, she had so many good moments. You would think there would be a greater sense of urgency for her to get back to her feet rather than just tying up Mackenzie Dern. And I understand the danger being underneath someone like Mackenzie Dern, but I feel like there was it wasn't necessarily the best game plan. What were your thoughts on that? I know you've trained with Hebus before as well.
Honestly, it didn't look like she had much of a game plan in general. It kind of looked like she just went in there to fight, which I feel like a lot of people do. A lot of people don't necessarily go in there with a game plan. They're just kind of in there to fight and see who's tougher. And when you do fight someone who does have a game plan, like Mackenzie obviously came in with one, and it shows. Yeah. It didn't look like she had, I guess, a goal of where, like, I want this fight to go here. I want this fight to stay here. I want to take it here. It was just kind of whatever Mackenzie doing, we were reacting off of it and just kind of going with it. It didn't seem like she had a direction in where she was going.
Yeah, no, 100%. I felt like the first like reversal off of Mackenzie's initial shot was nice, but when you get reversed after that, there should be an adjustment in between rounds, right? It's like, okay, well, we got reversed. So, hey, maybe this time let's frame, separate, and get back to, because she was doing really well on the feet, you know? And I think the size difference, you said this to me and I didn't realize how true it was till I saw them in the cage this time. Yeah, Hebus looked massive, like had a huge length and size advantage there. So I'm like you said, I'm surprised I didn't see more in-fight adjustments from her team.
Something that kind of, I guess, stuck out to me of the fight was, and it's something you don't really see in MMA as much, Mackenzie doesn't look as comfortable in top guard as she does in bottom. The second she hits her back, she's looking for attack. She's going for like she's aggressive off of her back. Yeah. But it seems like on top, she just kind of like stalled it out, didn't really know what to do, was kind of scared to move, it almost looked like. And I just found that funny. I'm like, you don't really see that in MMA much. Just seeing somebody who is more comfortable in like, I guess what can be considered a worse position.
Right. Yeah, and you could see the difference between Hebus being on bottom versus Mackenzie, like you said, like the immediate reaction to, oh, I'm getting like complete perpendicular angle. I'm going to be attacking this arm as soon as we hit the mat. I do wonder how much of that was Mackenzie on top. Maybe it was a little bit of her jiu-jitsu background, because you're always like somehow, this is why I can't stand sport jiu-jitsu. Somehow you can be on top guard and nothing can happen, and somehow you lose by an advantage. In jiu-jitsu rules. So maybe it's that constant, like, oh, I have to pass, kind of just ingrained in your mind. But also I wonder if some of that was just Hebus being like, all right, I'm going to hook your arm and your head and we're just not going to move because I have no other way to defend and get up, other than hoping the ref stands us up. So I wonder how that.
No, I agree with you on that. I do think, like, obviously Hebus needs to do more offensively and, well, like, I guess defensively to get up. But offensively, I think as a grappler, it's so important to work hand fighting, work getting off your punches, working being able to do damage when you are in those top positions. And it's like, that's just an element of Mackenzie's game that it doesn't seem like she's necessarily evolved yet, where obviously we've always known her for her jiu-jitsu game.
Right. No, it makes sense. And I think you'll probably agree on this. I love being in top guard. Like from an MMA perspective, I think it's one of the best places to do ground and pound. I think there's little danger. Like I haven't been armed. Like obviously it happens. You get arm barred. Like people can arm bar you off your back, but I think you'll agree it's a lower percentage submission than being on top and, getting rear naked chokes and whatnot. So I like that position. I almost prefer it to passing sometimes. So it is interesting.
No, 100%. I'm either in top guard or half guard. I'm never trying to pass or like mount, obviously. Mount's ideal. But my goal is never to try to pass. It's like that's such a mindset that's created from you get 2 points or 3 points when you pass.
Yeah.
So that's why we're working to passes, so we can get those points on the board. But in MMA, it doesn't work like that. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, 100%.
My light went out.
Yeah, you got dark for a second.
Yeah.
But we can still see you. You're not dark. But we gotta pull up Chris's comment. Chris, I think you're just biased because your name is Chris. Chris Curtis got a TKO loss instead of a decision loss. Like, he definitely didn't get screwed. Like, he wasn't winning that fight. However, you're back. Yes. He wasn't winning that fight. Like, Kopylov won the fight. You can argue that he might have made it to the bell, and he very well may have, but the ref's job is not to look at the clock. The ref should never be looking at the clock. His only job is the safety of those fighters. And if you're on all fours and you look out of it, personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with that fight.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I can see where Chris Curtis was upset. It was a weird stoppage. Like, it was weird how Kopylov just kind of walked away.
That part
didn't follow it up. Yeah. So it was just a weird stoppage. He definitely lost the fight. I heard his corner, which I guess you could make this argument of, he was arguing that Kopylov had 2 fouls in the first round and there was no point taken. So he was like arguing that with the ref.
But you argue that after the first round, like,
yeah.
Wait until you're upset the fight got stopped.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not upset that the fight ended like that, because it was going to, I feel like decision wise anyway, it was going that way regardless. It was a banger of a fight. And I think one of Chris Curtis's better performances I feel like so many times he just gets frozen here and gets stuck here, and this was the first time I was like, oh, he's really just letting go, he's just firing off, he wasn't just being so reserved as usual.
Yeah, no, I think that's his biggest detriment, is he takes a while to get going and he doesn't throw a lot of volume. But yeah, we definitely didn't see that. And I think a well-earned $50K bonus, like, guy still cashed that check. So I'm happy for him that he, at least got that bonus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, what else stood out to you on the card? I mean, there were so many. Curtis taking lessons from training with Strickland. They definitely have some similarities. Like, they both kind of hide behind that Philly shell, and honestly, I don't hate that. I think it keeps them from getting hit clean a whole lot,
I was gonna say, they used to be like, I remember, like, really good training partners, like really good friends even. But I want to say that there was a little bit of falling out there.
Is it? Oh,
yeah. I want to say it was pretty public on Twitter.
I see, and this is my problem, is I never ever get on. What is it? It's an X now. I never get on X. So I miss all the beef that goes on. I just see, like, the Instagram posts of the X posts, and then I'll be like, oh, what happened?
What happened here? Yeah.
We had a very interesting little moment. I guess Khabib got kicked off a plane. I kind of watched it. So what I understand, I did some digging. From what I understand, he was seated in an exit row, and the flight attendant felt like his English wasn't good enough to be able to take direction in the event that there was an emergency, which I kind of understand. My immediate reaction was, we've heard him speak English. He speaks fine English. And then I remember that he's been back in Dagestan for 3 years. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So maybe it's not as good as it used to be, type of thing. But yeah, it was interesting. And so he argued with them and they removed him from the plane. So
yeah, it seems like a very weird situation, honestly. He even was saying in the video, he's like, I'm fine to help. Why can't you let me sit here? Like, he's speaking in clear English to the lady.
So it's like they're having a conversation, right?
Yeah, it's like, if that's the situation, I don't know. It seemed very weird to me. I almost feel like Khabib was in the right versus the airline more. Like, it seems like they were doing something almost egregious.
It seemed a little excessive to you. Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you. I was like, I'm trying to see it from their perspective, but like, he's having a conversation with her. It seems a little much, but
yeah.
Also, like, I probably wouldn't, if they were like, hey, we're more comfortable with somebody else in the exit row, I'd probably just move.
Yeah.
Like, I probably wouldn't. He was like, no, you can remove me from the plane. I was like, ooh.
Okay. Would not want to be the security guard that day, I will say.
Oh my gosh. Oh, right.
Getting double
I
legged.
wish we got to see that part of the video. Like, how did that go down?
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. Sorry. I digress. We can go back. We got to go back to UFC Vegas 101 because there was a lot more. Obviously we had big strawweight main event. So many finishes. We had, Soriano, 31 seconds against Uros Medic. He's one of those guys that just shines as the underdog.
It's funny because, like, watching the first 30 seconds of that fight, Euros looks so composed, and Puna almost seems like wild and aggressive, and obviously it worked out for. I feel like, and then later in the night, you see, Almeida.
Hassan.
And it's almost the same dynamic, but the opposite thing happened. Where it was like one was very composed and the other one was aggressive, throwing bombs. And he ended up he dropped him first too, but he ended up getting it knocked out at the end. It's just like, which is the best approach?
And like this is the fight IQ of grappling, in my opinion. Like you have the grappling position, you're riding. Personally, I wouldn't let go to punch. Like I would keep that position if it were me. Obviously, Al Hassan is not typically known for his heavy grappling. We know him for these huge explosive knockouts. So he was probably just going back to what he knows, but gave up that great position to just get clipped,
Yeah. But I'm like, it's just crazy the dynamics of the fight, and obviously 2 great KOs off. The way, honestly, I think it was a little bit of a late stoppage with Punahele. I'm like, he dropped him, and it seemed clean, like it could have been a walk-off. Took a couple extra shots there where I was like, hey, ref, where are you at?
We had a few weird stoppages. I felt like Carlston Harris should have been stopped earlier. Like, I thought Santi had him super hurt, and then he almost waited until like he got knocked out and then woken back up, and then he was like, okay, that's enough, which I still think it was the right call from the ref because he'd been dropped like three times at that point.
It was rocked. That right hand just landed clean over and over and over again. Anytime he was throwing a 1-2 or 1-1-2, Ponzinibbio was touching him, and it was just like near the end of that round just happened over and over. It must have been 5 to 10 times. Like it was just hitting him clean and almost dropping him every single time.
So you agree the stoppage should have happened at that point, right? Like it just looked a little weird, I think.
For his brain health, yes. I do agree.
No, I agree. And then the awkwardness of like Santi, you met Ponzinibbio, I'm assuming, when you trained at ATT. Super friendly guy. Like he's like, yeah, like bring this guy over. We'll chat together. And then he just stood there in the middle of Santi's interview the whole rest of the time. I'm like, dude, your time's over. It's done. You got to say something. You lost him. He's just there in the background scooching on in. But that was bizarre. But yeah, I feel like every time I'm at the gym, Santiago's doing boxing rounds with somebody. Like every single time. Like that's just, he's always sparring and it's always boxing. Like he put so much time into his boxing, and it does show like at 38 years old. At 38 years old, he's still putting these guys away. So can't fault the guy there. And we had, what else? Brain fart. Jacoby Smith, huge finish as well.
Beautiful fit. Honestly, just a beautiful like performance as a whole. Went out there, looked fast, clean against a tough opponent who was a gamer, who was in there trying to come back at him. And the way he threw that right hand left hook, I don't think there's like anything cleaner than that we saw last night. Just, it looked like he was like drilling his right hand, just like practicing it. It was perfectly thrown.
Oh, 100%. And the explosiveness, I feel like just the way that guy is built, he looks like he's wound up all the time. Like he just looks like he carries that power and denseness to him. And especially with somebody who we look at and we're like, oh, this wrestling credentials are just incredible, to go out and put out a statement like that. So Jacoby Smith, come on our show. Come talk to us. We want to talk to you, bud. Incredible debut.
Him and Punahele, I was surprised didn't get the 50K.
Yeah.
I'm like, those were both very good performances, very good knockouts, and I'm surprised Dan overlooked those.
Yeah. I guess it's like, it typically does go to the main card guys if there's a lot of finishes, is And I get it, but I also don't, because like I remember when Grant won his first bonus, it changed our lives. Like we had nothing. We had no money. We lived in a shithole. Like $50,000 completely transformed our lives at that point, you know? And so it's like if he gets a bonus now, it's like it's still awesome, but it's not nearly as life-changing as it is for those guys earlier on the card, you know, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like whenever they had the UFC 300 giving the 300K to all people. It was like everybody on the card is like, do they really need the 300 though? You know, they're getting a good paycheck anyway.
These guys are already making millions. Like,
yeah, save that for another card, you know, when we need it.
I agree. Give it to the poor kids. But I feel like with the debuts too, they're not padding these guys anymore. Like they used to focus on a young prospect, especially the Contender Series guys. They really focused on them for a while, and they would tend to build them early in their careers. I feel like the UFC is like, we have so much talent now, you sink or you swim. Like Jacoby Smith did not have an easy debut. Austin Bashi, they threw him into deep waters for his debut, and he's 9-0 and highly touted prospect. And I do think he's going to do very well. I think he lacks a little bit of experience, but I think if you put him up against a slightly less seasoned fighter than Christian Rodriguez for his debut, I think he does. I think he would have smashed him. But what a tough first fight.
Why is Christian Rodriguez every like up and comers fight? I'm like, I was looking at he had Rosas, Cameron Simon, and now what's his name? Yeah, Bashi last night.
And Isaac Dolgarian too, who was a Dana White looking for a fight guy who I trained with in Missouri. Phenomenal wrestler. And I do think Isaac won that fight, but it was crazy close.
Like he's just the prospect killer. And I'm like, there's another thing that I gotta say about the prospects. There's gotta be something behind that curly hair. Because all the prospects I'm like
Chase Hooper,
Raul Rosas, Bashi, they all have the curly hair. There's something behind it.
I feel like if Chase Hooper was a Pokemon, Austin Bashi would be the Pokemon that like evolves into Chase Hooper, and then Chase Hooper would evolve into Roman Kopylov.
Yes, exactly. The 3 levels.
The 3 levels of Pokemon. I don't know how Pokemon works. I just know they evolve.
Speaking of Pokemon, I'm like, did you see Mackenzie Dern's daughter with her little Pokemon in the ring?
She was so cute. What are your thoughts on do you want kids? And if you had kids, would you take them to your fights?
The first one is, I guess they're both, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know. It depends, I guess, how my career goes, where I'm at in life. I'd say within the next 5 or 10 years, I'll make that decision if I want kids. I'm not 100% sold on no. I'm not 100% sold on yes.
Fair enough.
But if I would let them to come to my fights, that's such a touchy thing. Because it's like, I've seen kids in the front audience while their parents getting knocked out cold. And you're sitting there like, this is awkward. So I'm like, I don't know. It's such a touchy subject because do you want to expose them to something like that violent happening to their parent at such a young age?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm so torn on this. I don't know what we'll do when we have kids because I saw a guy, it was a regional show. He was actually fighting Isaac Dolgarian and he got the absolute piss beat out of him, and his blood was like splattering like out of the cage and his kid was in the corner. Yeah, just like screaming and sobbing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why are you here? Like, and it was like, I understand with age too, like maybe 11 or 12, like you can understand like mom or dad's okay. Like it's just a sport. But this kid looked quite a bit younger than that, like maybe 7 or 8 years old. And it just didn't sit right with me. I was like, I don't know if I could do that. Definitely not cage side. Like maybe up in the audience somewhere, but not right by the cage for me. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely not, especially like in a situation like that, like blood split. You don't know what's going to happen. That's the thing. I'm like, you can go in there as confident as anything saying, I'm going to KO this dude. And then you have your blood splattering all over the cage now and your kid has to watch that. So I'm like, I don't know. I think, like you said, maybe a little bit older, but keep them away at first.
or even no blood, but Abdul Razak Al Hassan. What a scary knockout. Like he couldn't get like I feel like they shouldn't have even put him on the stool. Like they put him up on the stool and he kept like falling over. Like
even after they knocked him out, they cut the camera back to him, and I'm like, why is the cameraman doing this? Like, we don't need to see that right now.
Move on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I want to know, is he okay?
Yeah. Can I look?
I'm a little bit nosy, and I'm also worried.
Yeah.
See what's going on. But oh man, the EV plush can't go wrong. Sean Sterling, yes, it was very cute. Thank you for naming the Pokemon for us. As you can see, we are not Pokemon people. Too much. The final evolution is Ben Askren. I missed all these comments, and I'm kind of disappointed because that's amazing.
Final evolution is Ben Askren.
It is. You're 100% right. Actually, will be like Chase Hooper in a couple years. He will look amazing. I agree. He's just going to evolve and get better. He had a couple, I think, like just not necessarily making the. I don't even want to say that he didn't make the right decisions because Kristen Rodriguez's scrambling and fight IQ is just so good.
I think Bashi just needs to expand his game. He just looked like a college wrestler to me. It was just like shot. Like you need to work on your striking, work on your work on your striking for wrestling. So like mix it together, like mixing your shots with your wrestling, mixing your jiu-jitsu with your wrestling. Obviously your wrestling is always going to be your strong point, but just make yourself more of a rounded mixed martial artist, because I really think that's where Christian shined. That's where he looked good. Is he went for like a guillotine attempt, was coming up with strikes, was looking like a well-rounded mixed martial artist in there.
Yeah, always. Like, I'm just, when are they going to throw this guy a bone? Like, I feel like he takes on all their toughest prospects and beats them, But I think I agree with what you're saying here, Carlos. Like, a lot of room for growth. Like, he definitely, he has it in him. Like you said, it's just, it's going to be time. He didn't look super comfortable on the feet quite yet, But there's honestly so much. Like, we've almost been talking for 30 minutes, which is normally the longest the show goes. I don't know what you have to do this morning. You let me know if you need to leave. But let's move on from UFC 101. I know we could talk about it over and over, but we had a couple other headlines we were going to touch on. Obviously some big news for PFL and the GFL. We have GFL losing $10 million worth of their funding right off the bat. So thoughts on that? I don't know where you're at with fighter pay and all that, but you take it, G.
Well, I guess from the beginning, I was hearing rumors of like pay that fighters were getting offered or are getting or whatever they're signing with GFL. And I'm just like, this sounds fishy. Personally, I'm like, it's just a lot of money that they're throwing around right now, which I'm like, just where is it coming from? How are they getting, how is it working? And so the UFL, the United Fight League, who is apparently one of their investors, posted this a statement this week saying that the GFL is going in a direction that they don't agree with, so they're withdrawing their support and their $10 million support.
I wonder what that direction is. Like, I have a lot of questions about the GFL, obviously, because it's a very confusing setup. Like the cities that, like, we're going to do 6 different cities, 6 different coaches. Okay. Is it like the Ultimate Fighter? Are all those fighters going to have to move to those cities and train with those coaches? Like, are they still going to train at their gyms? How are they a team if they don't do that? But also, like, drug testing. Half the roster has been retired from the UFC for several years and are definitely not natty right now. Are we drug testing? Like, what is the plan?
I'm just like, a lot of the names on the roster, like, say, like Tyron Woodley. I'm like, he's a former champ, just got paid millions to box Jake Paul or Logan Paul, one of them, a couple years ago. Like, what do you have to offer him to come out of retirement?
So I'm like, it's just going to be stupid money. Like,
that's what I'm like. It has to be a stupid amount of money. But then that's where it poses my question of like, where is all this coming from? Like, where are they getting all of this money that they're willing to throw around on retired UFC fighters?
And are people really going to tune in to watch retired UFC fighters fight each other?
I think you're gonna get like the people like me who are like
Huge
super fight
fans.
fans. Yeah, and it's like every other day I'm looking, I'm like, is there fights on? Like, is there something to watch, something to do? But it's like the general public won't care about it at all. It's not gonna it's gonna get like, I feel like a very small portion of the like super fanatic fight fans, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I just don't feel like they're going to be able to steal prospects from the UFC, like, because I would be so concerned. Like, if you're 23 and you're 7-0 and you're just smashing guys and your options are the UFC, PFL, or GFL right now, this over here, GFL and PFL, there's so many questions. Are they even going to be here in 2 years? And if I choose this like fast money right now over this very stable organization that's been around for 30 years, is this organization going to want me after this organization possibly fails? You know, like why would you make that choice if you're a young prospect? So it's like their only option is to grab these old superstars, you know, who are, most of them are far past their prime. So,
And it's like when I was like a regional pro fighter, I remember Dean saying this to me. It was different promotions at that time, but he's like, do you want the name or do you want the money? Do you want to go with Bellator and get money, or you want to go with the UFC and get the name? Like, because you're gonna have more opportunities with the name of the UFC, and like just even the general public, anybody who's like, oh, you fight UFC. That's
they
the
don't
question
know
you
the
get.
difference between MMA and the UFC. That's how cohesive they are.
Exactly. I'm like, MMA is the UFC. Like, they are the same to the general public. So if you really want like the prestigious name, like if you really want to be like one of the greatest, that's where you're gonna go. So it's like it is always gonna be so hard to steal the prospects, to get them, unless you said like you can get a quick paycheck there, go and do that, and then. But I feel like the true fighters, the true prospects, they're gonna know where the talent is headed.
Yeah. Well, and like I think there's a lot of guys like that that probably are disappointed that they did go to Bellator, because now it's fizzled and so many guys are just stuck in these contracts with Bellator that they don't know what's happening. Bellator is going to have 2 shows this year? How are they going to get all those guys fights?
Why is it still a thing? Why is Bellator still a thing? I thought PFL bought it out.
I know. You should just absorb it, follow the UFC blueprint. They could do it. They honestly have the roster to be able to follow the UFC blueprint and do really well. They do, but they want to be different for whatever reason. And speaking of PFL, we got to touch on this too. Cutting their $1 million tournament in half to a $500,000 tournament. I think it's just such a bad look. Like, you can have a $500,000 tournament and it grows and it grows and it grows, and then you turn it into $1 million tournament. But when you're known for your $1 million tournament and you cut it in half, it just looks so bad.
And adding on to that, they're making it more dangerous by adding elbows too. So you get half the prize money and you can get cut.
Well, and that is a big deal. I actually thought the original elbows rule was smart. If you're making people fight every 6 to 8 weeks, like in a season, you shouldn't have elbows, because you're going to lose a lot of fights from cuts. Like, if you get a nasty cut, like, I don't know have you ever had like a super deep cut before?
Yeah, I had 11 stitches right across my nose.
And like, how many weeks did that take to heal before you could really get hit there again?
So I grappled 10 days after and split
Maybe
it right back open. I just remember, like, literally I grappled 10 days after, and it was against Pearl Gonzalez, and she took me down, and the second we hit the floor, I swept her and I got on top, and then I just see blood dripping down my nose, and I was like, fuck. The first 10 seconds.
How long did it take to heal after that?
The doctor suggests, I think it was like 21 days or something. Wow. I want to say, after a cut that you shouldn't get touched. So 21 days taken out of an 8-week fight camp is half your camp. Chunk.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Oh, gee. 10 days. 10 days. She's like, yes, let's do it.
He told me I could take the stitches out at 10 days. It was the grappling competition was 11 days after. So he told me that I could take the stitches out on 10 days. And I was like, all right, we'll be good then.
Split it right back open. Oh.
Yeah, it didn't help.
Oh my goodness. Anywho, we'll touch on one more thing and then I will let Gillian go because we've been going for almost 35 minutes. First pay-per-view of the year is on Saturday. Obviously, I was very stressed about possible changes because we have an Airbnb booked and a rental car booked and flights booked to California. So I was like, is this fight still happening in California? I know there's a lot of fires. It appears that we are still going forward. I know they canceled a basketball game yesterday, but there is a basketball game scheduled for Monday and Wednesday at the Intuit Dome that is still happening, which makes me feel slightly better. Do you feel like it's weird that they're still going to do this event in California with imminent fires raging around the surrounding areas, or are you all for it?
So I just read in a news article that said that an NHL game and the NBA game were both canceled. And one was on the 13th, one was on the 15th, and the fights are on the 18th.
Did they cancel the third? So as of like 2 days ago, I was reading an article that said the 13th and the 15th were still happening. Did they go ahead and cancel those?
What I read this morning said that they were canceled.
And this makes me so nervous.
The UFC, though, in the article, it said the UFC says they're still a go. They're still going for it, and I wouldn't expect anything else from Dana, you know?
We will have fights.
Like, he was the only sport, really, that went all through COVID. I think we missed, like, 1 or 2 cards, and he was back. I'm like, Dana makes things happen, so I wouldn't expect anything from him but this.
I am hopeful because if my geography is correct, the Intuit Dome is not really near any of this that's happening right now. And I do also understand the NBA, like they have a season, they can do games. They do games almost every day. So it's probably pretty easy for them to just be like, hey, let's be sensitive to what's happening and push it back like another week. The UFC doesn't really have that same ability to just move. Like they can't be like, oh, well, the card's on Tuesday now. And ESPN's like, no, we have all this other stuff happening at that time, you know? So they don't really have as much freedom to move things around. So hopefully nothing changes. Although I will say this, even if we lost out on our Airbnb money, our rental car money, and our flights, I think we'd still save money fighting in Vegas and not getting taxed by the state of California. I'm pretty sure it would still be cheaper.
That's fun, isn't it?
Pretty sure Grant would still lose less money. Anyway. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. Sorry, I hit my tab button. It's wait, we gotta hit this. Sean says it's mainly the smoke and being able to have cops and emergency services present for the pay-per-view. Okay,
that makes sense.
So hopefully that's something Dana can just shell some money out to, and we'll make it happen. But
just
thank you guys.
Bring them all from Las Vegas.
Yes. Yeah, bring the whole team in. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Our very first morning brew. I know it's a little crazy without Maddie organizing things. You guys will just have to settle for me. But thank you. We will be with you almost every Sunday. We might be here next Sunday. We'll see. Because I'm flying. I think you're doing something next Sunday too, right?
I'm doing something Sunday after.
Okay. Well, that's Sunday after. Well, we will keep you guys posted on next Sunday. Also throughout this week, remember there is no live show on Tuesday. Dave and I are working on something else, but we are both traveling that day, so there will be no show Tuesday. There will be a show though. Do not fret. It'll happen. Stay tuned on the Facebook page and the Instagram, and we will let you know. Go subscribe to the YouTube. Love you guys. Have a fantastic week.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, I have to push the button.
It's the Morning Brew with Elle Dawson and Gillian Robertson. Brought to you by Fight Bananas.